I'm here today with Charlottesville real estate agent Pam Dent of Gale Harvey in the beautiful Keswick, Virginia on the scenic Route 231, looking at large contiguous horse farms set against the Southwest Virginia mountains. Pam, are these examples of your typical Charlottesville horse farm?
These are more large estate properties. Quite a few of them, like Bridle Spur over here, have significant barns and fields and stables, but they are larger than some of the farms that we have for sale. We have quite a variety of sizes and types of horse farms, and also a variety of price points. So we can find something to satisfy anybody's desires and budget, something for everyone.
What are some of the things you should consider when purchasing a horse farm?
Well, one of the things to think about to start with is how much acreage and pasture you need. How many horses are you going to put on the property? And are your horses going to be mainly living out and grazing? Or are they going to be living in a stall in the barn and only going out for a little while? As you can see, these fields that we're passing by are 3 and 4 board fence. They might be painted white, or they might be black board fence. For horses, you can also find 2 by 4 inch woven wire, often with a board on top. You want the woven wire to be narrow enough so that they can't put a foot through it. Fencing such as barbed wire isn't going to be appropriate for a horse. You want to think about the topography of the land. How level is it? Gently rolling is fine, but you certainly don't want your land to be predominantly steep. And what's the quality of your grasses and pasture? And then think about, how are your horses going to live? Do you want them to be in a barn, a center aisle barn? Is a shed row barn fine? Or if you've got pleasure horses, they may be just fine living out with a run-in shed for their predominant shelter. And depending what you do, you might want to be able to trail ride on your property or have access to adjoining properties that you can ride over. In this area, which the Keswick Hunt hunts through, people do get permission from the adjoining landowners to ride over their property. And you can even ride up to the top of the Southwest Mountains there, and there's a trail that runs all the way along the top. Or do you need a ring? And if you're buying a property with a ring, what kind of footing does it have? Or if you're thinking about putting in a ring, is there a nice level place in which you can add one without too much grading? And then, of course, we have some farms that actually are available with an indoor arena, although you don't find too many indoor arenas in this area of the country, and it really isn't necessary to have one.
Is there any particular due diligence you need to consider when buying a farm?
Yes, it's more than just buying a home on more land. We do a home inspection, but you may also, if it's a considerably big property, you might want to do an environmental study, which looks into the land, previous uses in the land. Was there maybe an old orchard on that land in the 40s when they would have used DDT, and that does not break down in the soil? So, and you're going to look into maybe the soil quality, things like that. So that's important. Also, is that what programs might that property be under? Is it in conservation easement? In a conservation easement, the seller has sold off the division rights for that property in exchange for a tax break. It's not usually done primarily for the financial remuneration, but because people want to protect the land for perpetuity and not want to see our countryside end up just one development after another. Another thing you see are properties that are in certain government programs. There's something called the CREP program, and that's for the preservation of the Chesapeake Bay. And you will get a rebate, I think it's about 80% now, for fencing off creeks and streams and ponds so that the livestock can't get in them, and they will pay 80% for the construction of the fencing, as well as for putting in automatic waterers for a drinking source for those animals. So, and then finally, lots of these properties are under county land use programs. They're agricultural programs that qualify you for a tax break. And they vary slightly what the qualifications are per county. In Albemarle County, where we are, you have to have at least 20 acres that is in agriculture, and that you're making a certain amount of money on it every year, and it may be some of farmers making hay on it and selling some of that hay, or you've got some cattle running on it and you're selling a cow or two off for every few years. But that gives you a significant tax break on the property taxes.
Thank you for taking the time to talk about this. As you can see, there's definitely a lot more that goes into the purchasing of a farm than just what would go into buying a house, right?
Yeah, there sure is. There's a lot to think about, and for that reason, it's good to have a real estate agent that is experienced in buying and selling this kind of property. If you've got a property for sale, you want your agent to be able to talk to the prospective buyers about the particular features of that property. And if you're buying, you certainly want a knowledgeable agent who will also be able to pick out which properties, will and recommend properties to you that are going to meet your needs.
Thanks for taking your time today.